The world was told there was a famine in Gaza, and now we know the data used to declare that famine was either false, manipulated, or didn't meet the UN's own standards. The newly released figures from the Global Nutrition Cluster State of Palestine Department show that the malnutrition rate in Gaza was 23% lower than the numbers the IPC used when they declared a full-blown famine. The highest recorded levels of acute malnutrition in July was 11.9%, which is well below the 15% famine threshold required by the IPC's own criteria for children who were aged 6 months to 5 years. And the IPC claimed that the number would rise exponentially, but it didn't. It slightly decreased in August, actually from 11.9% to 11.8%. Yet somehow, on August 22nd, the IPC publicly declared that 514,000, over 500,000 Gazans were in famine, and projected that 640,000 would be suffering famine within weeks. That never happened. So you might be asking, how did they justify a famine declaration without data to substantiate that there was actually a famine occurring? Well, they did something that they had never done before in Gaza. Maybe ask yourself why. They used a tiny bi-weekly data set based on only the first half of July instead of the full month. Again, they had never done this for any report until this one. And they also used unweighted samples that were not representative of the entire population, and then they proceeded to ignore larger existing data sets that contradicted their claims. Essentially, there were larger data sets, and in statistics, if you want the more accurate claim, the more accurate representation, you use the larger data set because it involves more people. They pushed away the larger data sets and used smaller ones, and then assumed, based off of smaller data sets, that that was representative of larger data sets when it wasn't. That's only one part of the criteria. You also have to look at the mortality threshold, which is the single most important factor. To declare a famine, you need 2 or more deaths per 10,000 people per day from starvation. So if famine were real among the over 500,000, remember 514,000 people the IPC claimed were starving for 46 days, there should have been over 4,700 deaths, which would be more than 100 per day. But according to the UN's own data, right, OCHA, as well as the Hamas-run Gazan Ministry of Health, there were only 170 malnutrition-related deaths in that period, which is 3.9 per day across the entire population of 2 million people. And the consequences of this reshaped narrative that wasn't based in facts was that the ICJ referenced these famine claims in the genocide case against Israel, which are not true. In fact, in previous reports, the IPC had indicated that there would be what they called a full-blown famine by July of 2024, but in a follow-up publication, they admitted that the available evidence does not indicate that famine is currently occurring. And those numbers from those reports, which they admitted were false, were used by the ICC to justify arrest warrants for forced starvation against a civilian population against Israel, Netanyahu, and Yoav Gallant. They weren't true.